It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. John Schmeelk, Marc Malusis with you, taking your calls at 201-939-4513. We're going to have Ric Serritella, the publisher of NFL Draft Bible, joining us in just a second to talk NFL Draft. Moose, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. How are you, John? Good?
Yeah, everything's good. 4 weeks away from the draft. Fast and furious, man.
Crazy. I mean, time flies, man. A lot going on. NFL Draft is right around the corner. Obviously, it's been a tremendous offseason here for the New York Giants with a lot of change in the building and free agents coming in and guys leaving for other teams. And obviously, the Giants hold the 5th overall draft choice. So, the NFL Draft is an unbelievable, atmosphere. What we're going to see out there in Pittsburgh. Schools closing down for the days out there in Pittsburgh.
Could you believe that?
No, I can't. I can't believe that. But no schools are going to do remote learning on the days of the NFL Draft.
Of course, it was up by you. They would have closed for the whole week.
Oh, no question. No question about it. But that's a little weird, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't know if that's necessarily what you want, but that's happening out there.
I don't think the parents are thrilled about that.
No, I don't think they're necessarily all that excited about that aspect of it. Puts undue strain on people. But still, the draft is a tremendous event. It really is for the National Football League, and looking forward to it after all the conversation, pro days going on, the East-West Shrine game, obviously what you saw at the Senior Bowl, the Indianapolis Scouting Combine, something you couldn't get out to due to weather here in the Northeast, John, but usually you're out there, so looking forward to the draft from a month from now.
Can we edge over 50 degrees, by the way?
I know,
it is still the end of March. I mean,
winter's still holding on strong.
It is holding on.
It's sunny. That's the best thing you can say. I couldn't open my car doors this morning. They were like frozen shut.
Well, yeah, with the rain yesterday.
I know. It was iced over. My sons were like, why can't we get into the car? Wait for the car to heat up a little bit.
I mean... Opening day is tomorrow. It's a high of 48 today.
I know.
What are we doing here?
I know.
All right. Someone I know has been grinding the tape, and I know I'm sure heading out to a bunch of pro days, is our buddy Ric Serritella. Covers the NFL Draft as the publisher of the NFL Draft Bible. Rick, you got Schmeelk and Malusis here in probably north of you in New Jersey, I think. What's going on, pal?
Gentlemen, great to be with you, and that damn groundhog got us again, didn't he?
Oh,
yes.
No question.
That Punxsutawney Phil. Someone needs to get Bill de Blasio on that to see if we can get the weather switched around. For the people that know, they know why that's funny. All right, Rick, let's start here. The Giants at 5. My question for you is that what's going to happen? I think we have a pretty good idea that Fernando Mendoza is going 1. The Jets will probably pick either Alvaro Reese or David Bailey or Ruben Bain, one of those 3 edge players. What do you think's going to happen at 3 and 4, which could very well dictate what the Giants' options are when they pick at 5?
Yeah, it's a good question. I like the uncertainty of the draft. We're just a month away. I think there's a lot of questions in terms of where teams are going to go after that first pick. And, I think Arizona needs a pass rusher. I could certainly see them zeroing in on David Bailey out of Texas Tech, the pass rusher there. And then at number 4, I do believe Jeremiah Love is going to be in play for the Tennessee Titans.
I do wonder, just to follow up real quickly, if Saleh being a defensive coach, and they made so many additions on offense in the offseason, if he's going to push them towards a defensive player there so he could get his defense installed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid point. Also, though, when you want to be a defense-controlled team, it helps to have a running game, and I think Tennessee's kind of gotten away from that ever since they parted ways with Derrick Henry. It feels like they've been trying to find a replacement, so I think it would alleviate some pressure from Cam Ward and then also help with the ball control and ground game, and then that correlates to the defensive side.
It's almost like letting Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown go, Moose, was not the best idea for the Frenches.
No, for sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. When you look at Love, is he the cleanest player in this draft, Rick?
He's right there with Caleb Downs. To me, I think is my number 1 guy, but Jeremiah Love, I think, is right behind him. I think he's a do-it-all back. He's going to come in and maybe be an instantly top 5 caliber type of running back. I think that's worthy of a top 5 overall selection. And I think when you look at the way the league is trending, you're starting to see teams run the ball more. And I think the NFL works in fads and trends. And I think, after about a decade or 15 years or so of tossing the ball around the parking lot, I think teams are getting more geared towards the ground game. And Jeremiah loves a workhorse back. I don't think there's too many of those in this draft.
No question about it. All right, so you're sitting there at the Giants, and you're staring at 2 Ohio State defenders in Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. You just mentioned Downs as your cleanest player in the draft. I guess my only thing with him, Rick, is that, he's not the biggest guy. He might not be the fastest guy. Otherwise, I'm with you. He checks all the boxes. How would you make that decision and choice between Downs and Styles if those are the guys you're staring at 5? Or would someone else be in that mix for you as well?
I like, Styles is number 3 in this draft for me. I think he's one of the top players overall, so it's a very close kind of equation, so to speak. For me, 2 things. So best player available to me, when you're picking in the top 5, you want cornerstone players that you can build your franchise around. So you want to get the best available player regardless of need. And so to me, with that theory and logic, Caleb Downs would be the guy, plug and play starter, possible all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber type of fit. Now, Sonny Styles, you can make the same argument for that at the linebacker position. And I think when you apply, kind of best player available versus depth of the draft and team needs, I think in this year's draft, linebacker is one position where I think you can find real high quality day 2, maybe even day 3, early day 3 of the draft. I do think there's going to be some quality linebackers that fall. And so to me, I would maybe wait a little bit longer on that position. And I do like Downs better. So to me, Caleb Downs seems like a home run.
When you look at it, we know the Giants aren't going to be addressing the quarterback position, but there's been a lot of buzz as of late in terms of talking up Ty Simpson out of Alabama. And some debate amongst some draft nicks in terms of the fact that maybe Simpson a little bit better of a pro prospect than Mendoza. How clear is the separation for you, Rick, between Mendoza and Simpson?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty clear. I think Mendoza was the more consistent player, right? If you just look at the overall body of work, week in, week out, this guy got the job done. I do have some concerns with Mendoza in terms of, if I'm talking about weaknesses now, in terms of they didn't really huddle. It was a very up-tempo offense, didn't get under center, didn't really call plays. So in terms of just kind of being a leader of men, commanding the huddle, calling plays, I think there's a lot of fundamental work there for Mendoza, but that's all stuff he's going to learn. He's going to get that. For Simpson, it was a tale of 2 seasons for me. The first half of the season, he looked like the best quarterback in the nation. Then midway through the year, he kind of faltered off, a little bit of inconsistency. And so I understand the hype, and there's not a lot of high-quality quarterbacks in this year's draft, so we're trying to make Ty Simpson into a franchise signal caller, but I don't know if I see that. I don't know if that's somebody I'm going to say, hey, this is my franchise quarterback, let's build around him. The accuracy came and went. But he does have great poise, very cerebral, also a 1-year starter. We all know the track record of those guys. Doesn't bode very well at the next level making the transition. So Ty Simpson, you take him in the first round, and now there's pressure to start him early. I think that could be a recipe for early struggles in his career. So to me, Mendoza's just more polished, ready to step in immediately. I think we saw it at Cal, and he really took his game to the next level at Indiana. His mobility now, he reminds me of a Joe Flacco, because his mobility, while it was able to extend plays in college, I do worry about how much of that is going to translate at the next level. And he did have some, little bit of struggles picking up the blitz out of his peripheral vision. But overall, to me, Mendoza projects as somebody who can be a top half of the high-end quality starters in the league. You can win games with Mendoza. I have some questions and reservations with Ty Simpson.
No, I think that's fair. So Tony Paulie and I, draft season's coming out tomorrow. We did a mock draft. And, Rick, I got to around pick 18-ish, 19-ish, and I started struggling, and it's like I'm trying to find guys that I feel good about picking with a first-round pick, and it was hard for me to really match some players with some teams when you got to around 18 or 19. When, for you, do you kind of get your drop-off in this draft? You're like, oh, boy, this is starting to get a little bit rough, and I'm having trouble here trying to fill out some of these spots.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And to me, I think we highlighted some of the blue chippers in this draft. I would say it's down in comparison to recent drafts. So in the past years, you might have anywhere from 6 to 10 quote-unquote blue chip players. In this year's draft, I see maybe 3 to 5.
Yep. And
so when you get that, once you get beyond the top 5 guys in this year's draft, to me, I look at it like from 6 to 32. I mean, you can really just kind of, what's your flavor? Because those guys are so evenly stacked. And I would say, once you get outside of the top 10, it's anybody's guess, and it's wild. And that's why, to me, the unpredictability and just the way that the draft big boards are probably going to be ranked or tiered by different organizations around the league, there's not going to be too many guys in that tier 1 category. And so what usually happens are teams are trying to trade down in those scenarios, but it takes 2 to tango. It's easier said than done. Not a lot of high-profile quarterbacks that teams are going to want to target and trade up for. That's usually the case. And so, to me, I think once you get outside the top 10, it's anybody's guess.
Rick, are there any, we a lot of players get talked up as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. Who do you have the most concerns about? Guys that have been talked about going into the top 10 that you have serious reservations and concerns about. Is there a name or two?
Inside the top 10, obviously Ruben Bain comes to mind with the arm length, but I think Ruben Bain is the outlier. As the NFL evolves, I remember there was a narrative that, the league didn't produce quarterbacks under 6 feet tall, and then Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield came along and smashed that narrative. And I think Ruben Bain, despite all the criticism he received for that arm length, I think he's going to overcome those shortcomings, pun intended. But he's the one that stands out to me. Outside of the top 10, I guess Jordan Tyson, to me, gets dinged a little bit just because if you look at his track record, not just the recent history, and I guess he had a little setback with the hamstring. I don't know if he will or will not be able to work out before the draft, but he hasn't played a game in 3.5 months. But you go back to even his days in high school, I think all the way back to his junior year in high school, he's been hurt every single season. And I think when you look at a pretty relatively deep wide receiver draft, how much does he get penalized for that? I know I would certainly be concerned or have my reservations about spending a first-round pick on a player who just can't stay out of the tub, right? And so I guess Jordan Tyson is one guy in the first round I'd be a little bit concerned about. Caleb Banks is interesting with his injury history because you put on the tape, he's a first-round talent. He's got incredible size, athleticism, profile, but then you just wonder about his list of injuries as well.
Rick, when you mentioned before in terms of 6 through 30, it's kind of dealer's choice or pick your flavor in terms of the overall quality of the prospect. I want to ask you about the depth of this draft. How deep is this draft when you get to the third day?
I think it's actually pretty deep draft. So, like we talked about recent drafts, it's not as top heavy. I think it's actually pretty deep in terms of overall depth. I think you're going to get starters into early day 3, and I mentioned wide receiver, I think is a very talented and deep position. If you need a center, this year's center class is loaded. I mentioned linebackers, I think that's going to be the one position where you can get a starter into day 3 at the linebacker spot. And the cornerbacks, like as much as I'm not in love with some of the corners being mocked into the first round, I do think there's considerable depth once you get beyond round 1, and some quality day 2, day 3 cornerbacks can be had.
Yeah, I think there's a sweet spot in round 2 in that corner if you're between picks like 25 and 50, where you could probably find some guys that can start for you. Who are the dangerous guys? And Moose kind of asked you about this. I want to focus on a specific group of them, though, and it's kind of the traits guys Rick, that teams will talk themselves into picking higher than probably the production might warrant. I'm going to throw a few of these guys at you, and you just can take all of them, any of them, whatever you want to do it. The guys that I see being talked up that I'm kind of watching, I'm like, I'm just not sure about this. A lot of people have Monroe Freeland going to the Browns at 6. That to me is crazy based on what he's done in college, on the field. Keldrick Falk is a guy that scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. Peter Woods is a guy that scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. You already mentioned Caleb Banks, so I would not go there. Those are the guys that I would kind of throw out there as guys to me that I can see being tempting, and you have in your mind what they could be, but they're not those guys yet. What are your thoughts on kind of that group of guys, and if there's anyone else you would throw into that category that I just threw out there to you?
Yeah, I think Keldrick Falk is the guy that's going to fool somebody, right? And, you see the frame, 6'6",
yep.
chiseled, 276 pounds, first one off the bus. And then you watch him and you say, where's the production? Just somebody who needs a lot of refinement in his pass rush technique, needs to learn how to finish. So I definitely would not even have Keldrick Falk on my big board in round 1 just because you got to be able to check off all the boxes. And production is certainly lacking there for Keldrick Falk. Banks, I'm intrigued by Banks just because of what he can be. And I think, if the price is right, I think you got to weigh the risk reward. Now, like if you're the Giants and you don't pick again until 105, it's kind of hard to pull the trigger there at 37 just because you don't know what you're getting this season, right? And so on the opposite end of the coin, though, like you're potentially getting a top 20 talent at pick 37. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by Banks. Again, like the athleticism, the size combination, I think that can work in the NFL. And we saw what Deontay Walker did last year with the Broncos. He had a pretty good season there for Denver. And I think Banks' upside is even higher. Who was the first guy that you mentioned?
Peter Woods. That was the last guy I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I think I'm not as alarmed with Woods as some of the others, and I get it. Like, it was kind of a lackluster season. It didn't live up to the expectations, but this kid's been dominant, man. His whole career, like everywhere he's been an elite player, and I understand that the performance wasn't there this year, but I think he flashes what he is, and that's going to be a solid starter, not a all-pro, not a Pro Bowl caliber player, but he's a guy that's going to come in, I think, and be a solid starter, dependable guy. Is he worth a first-round pick? If he's there at 37, I would definitely consider it, but probably not round 1.
Rick, you mentioned in terms of this being a really deep draft. Is there a couple day 3 guys that that you're keeping an eye on, that you think that you really like, that are flying under the radar?
Yeah, there's a couple of players. I don't know where they're going to go, Moose. Jaden Ott out of Oklahoma being one of them. This guy was all-world at California about 2 or 3 years ago, ran into some injury histories. Barely touched the ball. I mean, he had like 10 carries for 68 yards this year for Oklahoma. Then he goes to the Shrine Bowl, and I think he had about 50 yards rushing in that, or the Senior Bowl, and he had about 50 yards. But if you were down in Mobile, you saw the electricity. You saw what you saw back in Cal. And to me, Jaden Ott is one of my top 5 running backs. I don't think he goes until day 3, but I think he's this year's version of Ja'Cory Crosby Merritt. Another guy I'm going to be monitoring is Chris Bell out of Louisville, who's, for me, arguably the best wide receiver in this draft, and nobody's talking about him because of the ACL injury, but I had a chance to check him out in person, and I was just blown away. The Eagles, if they trade off A.J. Brown, I do some Philadelphia spots. I'm like, hey, Chris Bell, that's the A.J. Brown replacement. He's 6'2", 220, yards after catch. He's a truck to bring down. I love Chris Bell out of Louisville. And then the linebacker spot that I mentioned, I'm really curious to see how the NFL teams, if they take a wait-and-see approach or if they pounce on these guys. But 2 guys I'm really curious to see. Their draft grades are all over the place. Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech and Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh, I think, are 2 linebackers that all they do is make plays, create turnovers. They haven't been talked about as much as a Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese or even Anthony Hill out of Texas. But I think these guys are legit players. There's something to be said. 13 forced fumbles for Jacob Rodriguez. I know he's been working with Peanut Tillman now during the draft preparation process. He's a turnover machine. Kyle Lewis, too, is another one. I think some people kind of viewed him as a potential safety prospect, but he did weigh in or measure in at 6 feet tall, I believe, at the combine. So I do like him at the linebacker spot. And how about Harold Perkins blew up his pro day yesterday out of LSU, and he fits that profile, kind of started off as an edge, played some off ball. Some people might view him as a safety. I think he compares to a Miles Jack kind of prospect. And again, not somebody you're hearing a lot of buzz about, but somebody that might slide all the way to day 3 that can really upgrade your defense.
Rick, last one from me. And by the way, I don't see why Rodriguez is any different than C.J. Allen or Anthony Hill, to be honest with you. I have them right in the same neighborhood, so I'm with you on that. You're good. You always go to the local schools here, some of the smaller schools. I know it's tougher now. All these kids transfer up. There's not as many FCS guys and stuff like that. Who are some of the local kids from this area, Rick, that you're keeping an eye on, that you've grown relationships with? You've been to their pro days. You know their coaches. That even priority free agents, guys that we should keep an eye on from the local area here that could make an impact in the league.
Yeah, one guy, especially for the Giants, Kimi Aratutu from Villanova, good-looking offensive tackle prospect, has some good bend to him, power, good lateral movement. He was actually down at the Temple Pro Day workout, and I don't think he gets drafted, but definitely an undrafted free agent, minicamp type of guy. I know Wagner running back Andre Hines is a guy out there on Staten Island. He just worked out at Boston College Pro Day workout. He's from the New England area originally, but he played ball out on Staten Island. Those are a couple of guys that come to mind off the top of my head.
Rick, last. Bring the conversation full circle. If you make the argument that, say, Mendoza goes 1 in no discernible order, but Downs is off the board, Love is off the board, and Styles is, say Arvell Reese is off the board, are you definitely going Sonny Styles 5th overall?
I am, just because he's in that tier 1 category for me. We talked about 5 or 6 guys as the quote unquote blue chip caliber prospects, and to me, there's a drop-off. After Styles and Reese, as much as I love Rodriguez and Lewis, there's a drop-off. And to me, like, the Giants are picking number 5 for a reason. They need to stockpile as much top-of-the-line talent as possible and then let the cookies crumble where they may.
And if they draft, say Love is sitting there with the 5th overall pick, because it's a big conversation, big talking point here in the Tri-State area. If Jeremiah Love is drafted 5th overall, you can understand that, Rick?
Absolutely. Was it not a mistake to let Saquon Barkley walk?
Nah, it ended up being. He helped the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl, no doubt.
No, I think you see how he played last year behind not such a good offensive line, and then you see, here's what I might have looked at here.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. Listen.
They ran him into the ground, though, too. I know the offensive line gets a lot of the blame there, but, I mean, no running back in the history of the NFL has come back after a 2,000-yard season.
That's true, too.
Come close to replicating it. It usually is a...
But the point is, of drafting a running back, drafting that position that high in the draft. He's that special of a player.
I mean, I think it's an absurd statement that, the running backs are devalued. To me, this guy's a game changer. You don't want a guy to change the whole dynamic of your offense, alleviate some of the pressure after Jackson Dart, who was in the tent way more than anybody would like to imagine. So not only do you alleviate Jackson Dart pressure to run the ball, but now your offense shifts dynamics. Instead of it all being on Jackson Dart, now you got a workhorse back. It alleviates the pressure. It makes Jackson Dart not have to run the ball as much. It doesn't put as much pressure on Malik Neighbors to rush back from his injury and be the focal point of the offense. I think it helps the Giants in so many ways. And we saw Saquon Barkley walk out the door, and since he's been gone, it feels like they just wish they had him back. So to me, I understand it. I don't mind it. In a way, I kind of love it.
Rick, it is a great argument. Tell the folks where they can find all your great work, dude.
Yeah, go to over to allaccessfootball.com. We got all the draft coverage you want from pro days, and all the All-Star game recaps are up there. Of course, we got the NFL Draft Bible coming out very, very soon, gentlemen, in a couple of weeks here. Over 500 scouting reports, all of our background intel that we've gathered from the training camps, in-season, All-Stars, pro days. So go check it out. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the support. Always good catching up with you guys. Good to hear your voices. Hopefully I'll be seeing you guys soon.
Sounds
Thanks,
good, Rick. Ric Serritella does a fantastic job, friend of the program for many, many years. Rick's been joining us talking draft. And I had to ask him about the local guys, and he's pulling out Villanova players.
That's
and
great.
Wagner running backs. Fantastic.
But those are the great storylines.
Yeah.
That's what makes the draft is, it's not necessarily just about, at the top of the draft, it's about Mendoza and clearly Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Jeremiah Love, John. But, it's also about guys realizing the dream and getting an opportunity later on. And, there are going to be guys that, through 7 rounds, you're going to see starters drafted in the, eventual, some sooner rather than later. But eventually you're going to see starters taken in all 7 rounds of this upcoming NFL draft. So it's great conversation. You learn a little something. Rick obviously does a fantastic job. He's been doing it for years. So you love to hear about the local kids as well, because it adds a little bit of a flavor. And what you know is when you learn about people, you care about people a little bit more, right? When you're able to connect. So when you learn about prospects and they're not just a name on the page, and you hear the storylines, and you hear about their story about how they grew up, or what the work that it took to put in to get to where they are right now, you're a little bit more invested than ever.
Yeah, no question about it. And here's why I've landed with Jeremiah Love, and we'll get to your calls in a second at 201-939.
Rick was bullish on that one.
4513. Hey, look, I'm with him though. Like
throwing Saquon into the mix, everything like that.
Just keeping the narratives going, baby. The 4 guys that I have in my upper tier are Reese, Downs, Styles, and Love. Those are the 4 guys, and then Mendoza. I always put quarterbacks separately because that's almost a different category of players, right? If those 3 guys are gone, I'm fine with that. I would be more than okay picking Jeremiah Love. In fact, that's who I would probably pick, honestly, if he was there. I would think about Bailey. I'd think about Bain. I'd think about Tate. But Love is, to me, clearly better than anyone else left on the board once those 3 Ohio State. And by the way, I think Love is probably a cleaner and maybe even a higher graded player than those 3, but that's when the position value tiebreaker comes in for me, which is why I would go with one of the Ohio State guys. But look, Love is certainly in that category. He's that good of an offensive player, and that's the argument, right? He's going to help your young quarterback more than anyone else.
Well, Rick just told you he's number 2 on his board, right? So he's ahead of Styles, and he's ahead of Arvell Reese, the 2 linebackers coming out of Ohio State. So, yeah, I think you're in the position here where you can draft a guy that you can use in a variety of different ways. You've got a new offensive coordinator, Nagy, coming in, obviously. Offensive line, 4/5 of it is coming back in 2026 as we sit here on this Tuesday talking right now. We'll see exactly what the interior of that, when you're looking at that right guard position, it looks like moving forward here, John. But talent is talent. And when you have a guy that you can go out there and use in the running back, traditionally carrying the ball out of the backfield, you can line him up wide, and he's elite level route runner, and he's a game breaker.
He can pass protect too.
He's a true 3-down running back. It doesn't matter whether or not you have Cam Scatterbo in the room, right? It's a matter of going out there. Competition is king, making your team that much better. And as John Harbaugh has talked about it time and time again, when you're sitting there 5th overall, your goal is to draft a player that conceivably can go out there and be a Hall of Famer after his career is done. And you look at Love, that's where Rick kind of hammers home the points, conversations that you and I have had. Jeremiah Love is going to be, whether you need a running back or not, Jeremiah Love's going to be a lot of draft boards because he's that good of a pro prospect. And
there are Notre Dame Giant connections, needless to say, in the organization.
And it's only going to build up more and more momentum as we get close. We're a month out, John. You're hoping for the warmer weather. There's going to be a lot of running back, a lot of Love conversation as the Giants sit there with the 5th overall pick. You know that.
Oh, I'm quite aware.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, maybe Sonny Styles has been mentioned more than Love on this show, but he's probably the prospect that's been mentioned first or second most. Maybe Caleb Downs, but he's right in the mix.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of Giant fans a little concerned, a little nervous, because of the Saquon Barkley selection.
But some are excited. The guys that love Saquon and hated him to leave, those fans are excited
no
about
doubt
the potential.
About it. And listen, Rick pushed back and talked about, was it a mistake? And listen, we live in a salary cap world in the National Football League, right? So you can't go out there and pay everybody. So, and Saquon went down to Philadelphia and has had success and won a Super Bowl year number 1. And no one's denying the player or the individual that Saquon is on and off the field. When you look at Love,
I think. By the way, I think you make the argument it was the right move for the Eagles, and I think you can make the argument it was the right move for the Giants too.
Listen, I think at that stage it was right, regardless of what Saquon ended up doing. Now, obviously he ended up with the Philadelphia Eagles, but when you're talking about the here and now, you're talking about a different regime. And the other aspect of it is, I think there's probably a little bit more of an appetite now, more than ever, with Harbaugh stepping into the building to be able to select a running back 5th overall.
And you have your quarterback
over 18 years, and you've got your quarterback. And that's really, honestly, what made Harbaugh so attractive. Not only the history of the Giant organization and being a foundation piece to the National Football League and all the winning that they've done in the past, but obviously because they have a quarterback in place. And if you don't have a quarterback, you don't really have a team, or you don't have a clear pathway to winning.
No question. All right, let's go to the calls here at 201-939-4513. Rob in Connecticut will lead us off today. Robbie.
Gentlemen, how's it going today?
What's up?
It's good to hear your voices.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks a lot, Robbie.
Hey, so real quick, I have to tell you, this is, as far as the off-season goes, for the first time in 10 years, it really feels like, we're not in a position of wanting. I mean, it's such a relief to, come back down to some level of, being a fan and having a level of normalcy and not everything being negative. I don't know. What do you think about that, guys?
Well, look, Rob, whenever you bring in a coach that's won a Super Bowl and has been one of the winningest coaches in the NFL over the last 18 years, you're going to have optimism. I mean, that's just the way it goes, and it's exciting.
Yeah,
that's simple.
It really is. Real quick, now, do you think Ruben Bain is a viable option at the number 5 pick?
I do not.
I would be surprised, one, because right now, edge is a need. I do think it is a low-key need. After this season, Thibodeau's a free agent, and you always only have 2 guys at the spot under contract. The other part of it, you're moving more to a 3-4 type of defense, and Bain is not really a stand-up outside linebacker and base. He's almost 280 pounds. I mean, he's just a big dude. He's more of a hand-in-the-dirt 4-3 defensive end type. Now, look, you're not in base much. You're mostly in nickel, so is that a big deal? No. But I think given the other guys that are available, I'm with Moose. I'd be surprised if they went with a Bain at 5.
Well, I don't think the other linebackers are going to be there because I prefer a traditional linebacker. I mean, flip a coin. I mean, I'm not an expert anyway, so who am I to judge? But I don't want a defensive back. I'm not sold on one of them, and I guess I could go for the running back. But if those 2 linebackers are not there, who do you go with?
Well, then who shakes free? Because then, I mean, either Downs or Love are going to be there.
And by the way, I also think Bailey might be a better fit than Bain, given how the defense is run.
I just can't draft an outlier at 5th overall.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, like that's it. And no one's rooting against Ruben Bain. He's he's a wonderful player to watch in Miami. And I'm not telling you that I think there'll be a team in the top 10 drafting him. But when when you go through this draft process and you talk to guys like Rick and John does his own rankings, and you're looking at that there are 4, maybe 5 elite level players in this draft. Well, or 4 outside of the quarterback with Mendoza, then, you're sitting there with the 5th overall pick, then your job there is to kind of play true to the board, and you're looking to try and bring in high impact, so I can't look at Bain and say to myself, well, I'm going to take guys that whose arm length is less than 31 inches. I'm going to draft him 5th overall.
How about the fact that he did not remeasure his arms at the pro day, by the way? After you've seen how many guys' arms were so much shorter at their combine than Spencer Fano added 3/4 of an inch to his arm length.
That's a good
point. Why
wouldn't
Bain remeasure at the pro day?
Unless he just knows.
Wow,
Man, maybe he knows. Maybe he knows.
They measured him in Miami. Maybe,
and he's like,
maybe he just knows.
Maybe I know what the number out there again. That's a good point.
Or maybe, you know what? Maybe it was a positive, his arm length in Indianapolis. I don't know. But yeah, that's a fair point. I just can't select him 5th overall.
And by the way, and then Rob, really quick to your question, I would just pick Caleb Downs. I'd be very, very happy walking away with Caleb Downs.
Well, give my kind regards to Mr. Mara, and have a nice day, guys.
Absolutely, Robbie. Thanks for the call. Absolutely. Let's go to Scott in New Mexico, and then George in Florida's up after him. Scott, what's going on?
Hi, guys. I'm glad I don't have enough hair on my head to pull it out, but I, for the life of me, do not understand why we're concentrating on anybody but Cornell Tate. The guy is 6'3". He averages 17 yards a catch. And in his first 2 years, he averaged almost 15 yards a catch. And he can hold on to the ball. And I, for the life of me, do not understand why, with Malik Neighbors' situation, why he is not considered the premium guy the Giants should be going after. I understand Jeremiah Love is a great back, no doubt, and Sonny Styles a great linebacker, no doubt. But if Malik Neighbors is not ready yet, who's going to be their number one receiver? And a guy like Cornell Tate can fill that role. Imagine having him and Malik Neighbors on the same team. It's like having two number one receivers.
Well, Scott, I think the reason is that a lot of people don't see Cornell Tate as a true number one receiver.
Well, he's demonstrated over his 3 years at Ohio State that he is.
No. Time out, Scott. He has never been a number one wide receiver at Ohio State. He's always been a number two wide receiver at Ohio State.
Smith.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. before that.
But he's averaging more yards than anybody when he catches the ball.
Okay, but Scott, like look at it this way, right? Look at it through this prism a little bit. Say for if I'm going through and looking at the receiver class in this NFL draft, if I can, and everyone's got different characteristics and traits, different size, different speed, but for the most part, if I can get the same caliber of wide receiver, right? With the 37th overall pick, that I can say, for argument's sake, drafting, a Cornell Tate 5th overall, or even close to it. Wouldn't I be doing myself a disservice by then taking Tate with the 5th overall pick? If I can address the receiver position, where there are 18 or 19 receivers rated in the top 100 draft prospects in this NFL draft class,
no, I think
am I then doing myself a disservice and not playing to the strength of the draft?
Yeah, I understand your point. I just think looking at him and watching him on tape, this guy can be an all-star. And for me, what do the Giants need? They need to complement Jackson Dart. That's the premium thing they need to do. We've talked about it, his progression and so forth. So he's the guy I'm really, really interested in. But I don't want to get bogged down on Cornell Tate. I was just curious if either of you know what the situation is with Ben Rhodes. Do they not want to pay him because he anchored that line? And I don't understand where the hesitation on the Giants' part is. So maybe you can explain it to me. As to why they're not signing that guy.
Yeah, I don't honestly, Scott, I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know if right now his ask is too high. I don't know if the Giants have other guys out there on the free agent market they would prefer more, and they're waiting for those guys' prices to come down. They want to go there first before they come back to GVR. I don't know the answer to that. Remember, 2 years ago, it took him a while. He didn't sign here until, I think, July or something like that.
That was like August.
Yeah, it was the first time he signed here. It was much later in the process. So I don't know why Scott. To be honest with you, I don't have a good answer for you. But the fact that he hasn't signed elsewhere, I think, is telling. Remember, he's a Long Island guy. His family is here.
When Harbaugh got introduced as head coach.
Exactly right, and I'm sure he wants to play in New York. So until he signs elsewhere, I would still feel okay about that.
Okay. One last point.
Yeah.
I know the Giants, I'm not sure why, but they had interviews with this guy, a cornerback from Arizona, Fredo Stokes. He also interviewed with the Jets as well. And are the Giants just fishing now as to whether they want a slot corner? Because I was a big proponent of D'Angelo Pons. And I sort of got poo-pooed a little bit because of his shortness, even though he had a 41-inch or 43-inch vertical jump at the combine. And he was really good at Indiana. But are they set at the flat corner, or are they still just trying to see what they can get maybe in the fourth round, or because they won't have a third round pick, or did they consider somebody like that at the second round pick? And I'll take your answer.
I appreciate it, Scott. Yeah, I think Stooks is the guy you'd look at around 4. Keontae Scott out of Miami, who had a really good pro day. He'd be another guy I think you'd look at. I don't know what they think about the slot position, Moose, to be honest with you. Do they want a bigger guy there, like Denard Wilson had back in the day with Kyle Hamilton? Do they want a smaller, quicker, faster nickel?
Yeah,
like there
TBD.
are so many different body types now you can put in that spot. I don't know what they're looking for. Obviously, they have a player here in-house in Drew Phillips that you could put there as well. So I don't know what the thought process is there at the slot corner spot, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think all the work that's being done now, I would look at it as being a case of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. You know, and you have to make sure you do your due diligence on every single prospect in this draft class that you have intrigue or interest in or want to get a better look at. But to answer your question, and John put it, I don't know exactly where their feeling is when you're looking at the slot corner in terms of where they want their cornerback to be physically.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either. And then just going really quick back to Carnell Tate. I think he's a really good player. I think I have him as my 6th or 7th best player right now, something like that. He's right in that area. So would he be a huge reach for the Giants at 5? Absolutely not. But he just doesn't have, once he catches the ball, you want to have a guy that can be really explosive. He's not a big yards after catch guy.
Right.
You look at his 40 time, his explosiveness. You know, you look at he didn't jump at the combine. So I think he's a really good route runner. He's got excellent body control. He's got good hands. You know, being from Ohio State, he's going to be really well coached as a wide receiver. And he does have the ability to catch those downfield passes. He has build up speed. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like, but I would not.
But there is a drop off from him to the top 5 guys in this draft.
Right? In my opinion, there is. Yes.
Okay, and
in my
Rick
opinion,
joined
there
us
is
to begin the program, and he thinks there is as well.
Correct.
Right? What is the? Let me ask you, because I asked Scott the question, John. What is the separation between Tate and the next best receiver? Like, how deep of a class? Like, when you look at, is there a great drop off?
Good question.
When you're looking at Tate and the rest of the receiver class, like how many quality wide receivers, how many starting wide receivers do you see in this draft class?
Starters, I think you're looking as many as 8, give or take.
All right, say number 2 receivers.
Number 2 receivers, I would feel good about probably like 7. Probably like 7 guys. Yeah.
Okay. So 7. I mean, you're looking at it.
Yeah, I think you're looking at Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, Denzel Boston, Chris Brazel, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, and then maybe even Jeremy Bernard, who could be maybe close. Seems maybe more of a 3. But those are the guys I'd put in there. 7 or 8.
Put 7 or 8, right? 7 or 8 guys when you're looking at this draft, right? So, you know, that's the point that you're making in terms of, like, if the Giants fell in love with Carnell Tate, I mean, you can make the argument that potentially then you move back in order in the first round potentially to go then address and bring in the wide receiver out of Ohio State. If someone's willing to go something where maybe you pick up a draft asset, replace that 3rd round draft selection, something of that nature.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a draft pick in 2027, whatever it might be, John. And that's playing the draft process correctly instead of overdrafting a guy to where his talent level doesn't necessarily meet the pick that you're making.
I will put it this way, and I think this is how I'll phrase it. Would I be shocked if Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion end up being better wide receivers than Carnell Tate? It would not shock me. Would it shock me if any linebacker in this class is better than Sonny Styles? Yes.
That would shock you. Well, that's a strong statement.
Right.
I mean, that says a lot in terms of love, in terms of what Sonny Styles is as a player. And he put on an athletic display out there in Indianapolis, and then you put on the game film at Ohio State, and his athleticism matches his production.
Same for Love at running back, and I would say same for Caleb Downs at safety. I would be pretty surprised if those 3 players weren't the best players at their position. I think wide receiver, though, like, it wouldn't shock me if one of those other guys we're talking about ended up being just as good, if not better, than Tate. And again, not taking anything away from Tate, but I would not be floored if Denzel Boston ended up having a better career than Carnell Tate. Like, that would not surprise me at all.
And John, we talked about it about a month ago, and it sounds like we're completely throwing shade at Carnell Tate, and who might end up being, you know, an unbelievable receiver in the National Football League.
Heck, I had the Giants picking him in a mock draft in February, so I like the player.
But these are the concerns, and these are the talking points that you have to have when you're in those NFL draft rooms.
Yep.
And you're going through this and you're breaking down game film is, how much was he a product of the talent around him? There's something to be said where you are on the field when you have Jeremiah Smith or Marvin Harrison, when you have the caliber of player at the wide receiver position where the focus defensively is not on you, is on the other guy, how much does that help you shine in that offensive system? No one's telling you that Tate can't play in the National Football League, and no one's saying that he's a clear, that he was just the benefit of being the other guy when with other more talented players around him. But those are the conversations that you have to have as an NFL team.
Is he that much better than Emeka Egbuka? Is he that much better than like Jordan Addison when he got drafted? And where were those guys picked?
Right,
they were picked in the teens.
Yeah, they were not picked in the top 5.
Exactly right. That's how I think. Because I don't think, like, for example, if Ted McMillan was in this class, he'd be my top receiver.
Yeah,
and he was picked 12 last year?
Was he picked that low?
8?
Maybe. I thought he was a little higher than.
He might have been 9 or 10. I'll look it up anyway. So that's kind of how I would have that conversation, right? All right, let's go back to the phone and say what's up to George in Florida. George, what's happening, man?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
You got it, man. What's on your mind?
My focus in the draft at number 5 would be on defense. When I look at the offense, I really only see one hole, or what I would consider to be a hole at this point in time. It's guard. And the scuttlebutt seems to be that they'll be able to fill that with Van Roten or somebody. But on defense, I think we need playmakers. We've got pretty good talent there, but I don't think there are enough guys on defense that make plays. So I'm leaning towards either Downs or Styles at 5. Either one would be good, but the only question I kind of have at Styles, and I may be the only person in the whole world that has this question, I don't know where he was rated before that outrageous display that he put on at the Combine. Can you guys tell me where he was rated? And if that had a significant impact on where he was...
Yeah, real quick. Sorry, George, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I had him as my 5th best player before the Combine. And I for example, I'll give you a perfect, this is a great answer. I had Daniel Jeremiah on from the Combine on Wednesday. So this was before Styles did his workout. And I asked him, if you were to pick a player for the Giants of 5, who would it be? Anyone in the draft. He goes, I'd give him Sonny Styles. So that was before the workout.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. And when I say playmakers, I don't necessarily mean turnovers. I mean people who can make big stops on third down, people who can make tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and that's really, in my opinion, what we're lacking. On offense, Love is a great player, obviously, but we got a running back room that can get you 2,000 yards in a season as a group, in my opinion. This whole idea of the gold jacket, that's wonderful, but, I want wins. We had a gold jacket guy a guy that's going to get a gold jacket.
But when you're looking there with the 5th overall pick, the idea of you're going to have a choice of Styles and or Love with the 5th overall pick, I don't think that's a real discussion. It's one of them's going to be off the board. Right, and you could make the argument that when you look at it, Styles, Love, Caleb Down. I mean, like you might only be sitting there with one viable option.
I
potentially.
Guess the only way all 3 are there is if it's Mendoza, and then Reese, Bailey, and Bain. That would be the only way I think. All 3 edge guys would have to go, and I think that would be very unlikely.
I think that,
But it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. Well, if you're sitting there and all 3 are on the board, I would take Styles.
Okay, I can live with that. But, when I'm listening to you guys, it's starting to sound like only one. You guys seem to be saying that only one of those 3 guys is going to be there at 5.
Could be, or it could be 2. Like, would it shock me if both Styles and Downs... or of Downs and Love, or I think the guy that's most likely to be there is Downs. I think he's the guy that's most likely to get to 5. Who would you say, Moose, is the second most likely to get to 5, Love or Styles? That's a good question. I think probably, I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's even money.
I think that's even money. That's that. You know what? I'm not going to bet another lunch because I owe you a lunch. So I'm not going to bet another lunch for it, right? Because basically I'm going to owe you a week's worth of lunch here by the time, because all I do is lose. But
we only did it once.
I understand that. I'm not going to put another lunch on there.
I don't know the answer to that.
I would argue, if I had to ask you, I think it's probably I would say Styles more than Love. I think the Jeremiah Love affection, and pun intended, I think is real. So
you think Styles more likely to be there, or more likely to be picked?
More likely to be there
Okay.
than Love. I think there's a potential, like we're talking about Jeremiah Love with the Giants with the 5th overall pick, that he's off the board, that he's not even there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's impossible that like the Cardinals pick Styles and the Titans pick Love. Like that wouldn't shock me either.
No, that wouldn't be surprising at all. No, I mean, and really the draft starts with the Jets with the 2nd overall pick.
Yeah, which by the way, they could pick 3 or 4 different guys.
Yeah, they could go in a variety of different ways. I mean, I guess I would be surprised. Wouldn't you be surprised if the Jets didn't take Reese?
I could see
surprised a little strong.
I could see them picking Bailey. I think it's Bailey or Reese. I think that's what you're looking at there.
Man,
well, I mean, now that I've generated this discussion, let me ask you guys a question. If all 3 of those players are there, which one would you guys pick?
Well, Moose said Styles.
I would take Styles.
I would probably lean towards Styles as well. I have probably a little bit of a better grade on Downs. I think Styles is a safer player, and I do think the middle Mike linebacker spot impacts your defense a little bit more than the safety.
Yeah.
So I would probably lean Styles on that as well. But I think
that would be a heck of a combination with Edmonds.
Oh my God!
All that length in the middle of the field.
I mean, it'd be
oh
insane.
My goodness! Try completing a pass in the middle of those zone
defenses. Got a creative defensive coordinator. You can use him in a variety of different ways. Right. Athletically freaky.
Thank you, George.
It would be crazy. But I mean, our guest to kick off the program today, Rick, he would tell you to take Downs because he has Downs as his cleanest player in the draft.
And I honestly go back and forth daily on those two. I'm right on the fence. I'd be happy with either one of those 2 players.
Yeah, it's and that's where this makes it fun, right? It makes it exciting to think about it. And I know, Giant fans get, you can get frustrated because you want the draft to be here, but thinking about this is no matter what you want to get, whether it be Downs, whether it be Styles, whether it be Love, wherever it might be, you want to bring in a player that's going to have a big-time impact on your team one way or the other. And I think the Giants are sitting there in the position where they will get that caliber of player come the NFL draft in the first round.
All right, I have one more hypothetical, but I want to get to Len in Columbia, Maryland first. Len, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
What's up, buddy?
Lenny, what's up?
Well, listen, one thing for sure, there's going to be a great player there at 5.
You would hope so.
I mean, that's the good news. There's going to be a terrific player there. And Love may not be there. I would not be surprised at all if Arizona goes Love. That franchise is just lost. They need a star. They got to do something.
They need a lot,
to turn that around down there.
They do.
I mean, there's no vibe, there's no buzz, there's nothing. Now, if you told me Bailey was going to turn out to be Lawrence Taylor, okay.
Well, then the answer is
well, Len, how about this? What if Len? How about this? What if
not be shocked
Len? How about this? What if Len? What if Bailey ended up being OCU Manura?
You take that.
I'd still take. They need star power, John.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you a question.
And I think outside of a quarterback, a position player like running back and a guy like Love, I would not be shocked at all if Arizona went Love. Pick 5 in the draft. If Love is there, our phone is going to be ringing off the hook.
I don't know about that, Len. It's a running back.
It's going to be ringing off the hook.
It's a running back. Teams don't trade up for running backs.
It's not. You take Love's potential and Love's skill set as it is now.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, geez, that would look pretty good on our roster. And we don't have to face him 10 times over the next 5 years.
Oh, Len, by the way,
if the Commanders pick
well, Len, I have a phone one for you. What if the Commanders call up and give you a nice offer to move up to 5? Would you lose Love to the Commanders to get the extra pick?
I said this to Paulie about a week ago, and he chastised me for this and said, you can't do that. That's no way to enter the draft.
What if it's a 2?
If there is a player that I don't want to see 10 times in the next 5 years, it gives me nightmares. It's Jeremiah Love.
That's a bad one. And the other one that I don't like, Len, if Caleb Downs somehow gets to the Cowboys at 12, I would not want to see that either. But I have no problem trading in the division. If you think it helps your team, make the trade.
I agree with you, John. I can't get. I got to worry about what's going on in my home. I can't worry about what's going on around me. I really can't.
That was Paulie's.
No, I get that. I understand that you don't want to see him. I understand that, but you got to get if the offer is that attractive, and you're able to add and replace and add another quality player because you have no interest in drafting that player, whether he ends up with Washington, whether he ends up with Cleveland, you know that Jeremiah Love is not going to be a New York Giant. What do you care? I mean, and then at that point, and if then you could still get the same player by moving back and add another draft pick, then that's a move that I would make.
And then you're picking Tate at 7. Then you feel great about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. But okay. But suppose it was 9. Suppose it was Kansas City at 9. Or New Orleans at 8.
I still feel good 8 or 9. I'm getting either Tate or I'm getting Caleb Downs. I'm making that trade.
I think I would too.
There you go. We're all on the same page.
I think I would too. But I just don't. Again, remember now, Moose. I'm not just talking about Love. Going to Commanders. I'm not trying to protect myself that way. Remember, he's a hell of a talented player.
Oh yeah.
I'm also getting the talent.
There's no question. But that's where you have to, kind of stick to what you believe and stick to kind of what you feel, and you can't operate in fear. Because if you operate in fear, you're going to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. And you got to be confident. However way it works out, you got to be confident and have the rationale and the reasoning why you made the decisions at the time that you made those decisions. And that's why, you have the men and women that are running NFL teams the way that they are.
And by the way, if you go down to 9 and Tate's not there, and you draft Mekhi Lemon at 9, I have no problem with that either. That's fine.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. But at least it's a two. At least Lemon goes to a team that's out of our division.
Yeah, that's true.
But boy, I think if that happened, John, if he went to Kansas City, I think the Rams would be terribly disappointed because I think they see Lemon as maybe the piece that gets them all the way.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Good, that play. Let me ask you one question about the defensive backs. Given the receivers in the division, Lance talked about this a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
Given the receivers that we have in the division, and if the Commanders don't pick Love, they're likely to go wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree.
And we added 4 defensive backs. Can we compete against the wide receivers in our division?
Yes.
Or do you start looking in the second round toward maybe the kid from San Diego State, Johnson?
Yeah, the way I look at it, real quick, you're not just drafting for this year. And after this year, Deonte Banks is likely going to be out of here.
Yeah.
Greg Newsom's on a 1-year deal. Drew Phillips will be heading into year 4, right, of his rookie contract after this year.
Right.
This is year 3.
Right.
So you're basically going to have, and by the way, Paulson Adebo will be heading into year 3 of a 3-year contract. So you're basically looking at a cornerback room where you don't have anybody long-term. So you're not just drafting for this year. So regardless of the division, Len, I'm thinking about corner in round 2 anyway, because I think you might get I think you might Moose get a pretty good player there in quarter.
Okay. And that probably means, if that's the thinking, at 1925,
well, I don't know what the thinking is upstairs.
Van Roten's going to be back on our team.
Yeah, could be.
Well, maybe. We'll see exactly how the rest of free agency does play out. The other thing that can help out a defensive secondary is a pass rush. So, I mean, that's the other aspect of it, too. So, guys, however talented they are, John, only hold up for so long. You're not wrong in terms of laying it out, the landscape of the Giants long-term at the cornerback position, and that could clearly be something that you're addressing that not only helps the team out in 2026, but obviously beyond. But the Giants also have the ability to get after the quarterback. And now with, a new defensive coordinator going out there being aggressive, we'll see what they do with that 5th overall draft choice. But you got to have Abdul Carter, new number and all, and going into year number 2, you've got obviously what you saw from Spider-Man this past year, hopefully a healthy Kayvon Thibodeau, who's going to want to get paid following this season. You have hopefully an interior guy in Dexter Lawrence that's a guy that can not only stop the run, but also get after the quarterback and be, a pocket crusher. That can help out a defensive secondary in terms of coverage issues at times as well.
All right, so Moose, this is my hypothetical real quick.
Let's hear the hypothetical. I love it.
All right, Styles is gone. Love is gone. 2 guys we've been talking about.
Okay.
But the Jets took David Bailey at 2.
Okay.
So Arvo Reese is staring you in the face.
Yes.
Would you go Reese over Downs?
I would.
I think I would too. Because I think you put him at outside linebacker. You put him at off-ball linebacker this
and I'd
year.
say thank you.
So would I. I think you put him at off-ball line. Because I think some Giant fans would be like, well, hold on, you have 3 edge rushers. Where are these going to play?
Yeah.
Guys, he was an off-ball linebacker at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You put him off-ball linebacker year 1, then maybe you trade Thibodeau. Who knows what you do with that if you end up drafting somebody high. And then you shift him over to edge. Because, again, after this year, the only 2 edge players you have in the contract are going to be Carter and Burns.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm with you. If Reese falls in your lap, would you do Reese over Styles or Love?
I think I would.
Ooh, I like it.
I think I would.
Spicy.
Wouldn't you?
I'd have to think long and hard about it. Yeah.
Would you do just?
You know what?
Would
Yes.
you take Reese over Styles?
No, you know what? I would take Reese over both of them.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah, I mean,
he's high on my board. I have to be honest to my board.
Yeah, you have to be true to your board. I think and that's where you have to play out these scenarios, and maybe the unforeseen does happen. And I think if you're sitting there, then the caller called up if Love's sitting there with the 5th overall pick. Imagine if Reese is sitting there. I mean,
because
Joe
again,
Shane's
not
phone
impossible.
would be lit up like a Christmas tree.
That's a pick where you would have people calling up.
There's no doubt about it.
No question about it.
When you have a guy like Arvell Reese, who was, many thought was going to go 2nd overall, all of a sudden sitting there with the 5th overall pick, teams down the board are going to be calling up and offering, a king's ransom to go out there and get him. And now the question is, do you entertain those calls? Do you entertain that conversation? Or do you draft the best player that's on the board? I think at that point in time, you say, well, take the player because the player is that good of a prospect.
You would have to get a really good haul to move out of that pick.
No doubt.
I'm with you on that. And look, some people might see Reese as a tweener. And that's why, again, this is a unique draft class, right? You don't have these grand slam, home run, top 2, top 3 every year type of draft. So that's why we talk about unpredictability. You have to take all that in consideration as you move forward here. Looking for more than just a ticket? Elevate Experiences delivers VIP access to the world's biggest events. From the Super Bowl to NASCAR to PGA tournaments, don't just attend. Elevate the experience at elevateexperiences.com. Bunch of good Giant Huddle podcasts are up there, folks. Make sure you check them out. We had Eric Edholm and Ryan Wilson from NFL.com and CBS last couple of days. Coming up later in the week, let me think. We recorded a bunch of these already. I got to remember who the guys are that are coming up. We put a lot of guys on here. No, my head is absolutely spinning. I know guys that we have booked coming up. Chad Ryder, who does a great job doing mock drafts and stuff for NFL.com. Just booked Rand Carthon, former NFL GM.
Nice.
He'll be coming up later in the week. Son of former Giant Maurice Carthon. Obviously, once a Giant, always a Giant. Always good to have him. We have one of the guys who's the brains behind Next Gen Stats, a new NFL IQ app on NFL.com. So we'll get into some of the metrics and stuff with that. That's coming your way. And that is, I think, all of them. Moose, what do you have going on that you want people to know about? Anything? What do you got cooking?
Right now? No, I'm talking to you. Talking a little Giant
That's what we
football.
like to hear.
That's it. I'll be on the Fan on Sunday morning. And
there we go.
Yeah,
all right.
no doubt.
So you're back on Sunday morning on the Fan. Absolutely. That's great. Oh, and let's see. What's my other one? Oh, Lance Zierlein's coming up later in the week, too. That was the other one that I coming up. And then former Giant Gary Reasons.
He's got a book out.
He got a book out, and
Reason to Believe.
I believe it should be up there right now. Yes, Reasons to Believe. Get it?
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Do you talk about
Paul Dottino did the interview.
Oh, he did.
Whenever I get these,
I'm
80s
sure he
Giants,
talked about the Humphrey hit out in the snow in Mile High.
Whenever we get these 80s Giants on, I always like to throw Dottino the bone because he gets a little excited.
No doubt, yeah, absolutely. He had to do how many miles did he walk that day before that interview? 10, 12?
I think he did them after the interview. He was just so jacked up from doing the interview. Always a pleasure, Moose.
You got it,
Good
John.
seeing you, brother. Johnny Mac, good job on the board today.
Thanks,
That's
Johnny.
Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. Coming to you from the Hackensack Meridian Hill Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Tomorrow, we'll be back for another Big Blue Kickoff Live at 12:30. We'll see you then.